spoke to Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton, who serves on the House Armed Services Committee, about the attack and the U.S. response. Congressman, the White House says that it is weighing up options for a response. You wrote on X, quote, "We must have an effective strategic response on our terms and our timeline." What would that look like?
Well, exactly what it looks like, of course, is what the administration is debating right now. But the goals that it has to achieve are to send a clear, decisive message to these militia groups, but also to their backers, that this kind of behavior is not acceptable and it will not be tolerated. But it's also got to be politically calculated to ensure that the message of deterrence gets through. And what doesn't happen is that this response empowers exactly the people who want to go to war. This is particularly relevant with Iran. We all know that in Iran, there are competing factions that want to reconcile with the West and factions that want to start a war. We don't want to empower the war makers in Iran. That would be playing into our enemy's hands.
Congressman, in the past few weeks, we have seen U.S. forces, also together with U.K. forces, striking Houthi targets as a message of deterrence. That hasn't appeared to work. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I think it has been effective, just not as effective as we would like. They've taken out a lot of missiles that could have been launched against innocent, defenseless ships transiting through the Red Sea. But I think we can also agree that it hasn't been as effective as we would like. It hasn't stopped these attacks. One thing that the U.S. and U.K. forces have been very careful to do is take out missiles and facilities without killing a lot of the people launching these missiles. Maybe that's a change that we need to make in the future, to send a harder message that if you're going to attack international shipping, you might lose your life.
Do I understand you correctly that you're talking about targeting not just, factories and weapons depots, but also specific people?
That's right. And this is a strategy that's been effective for the United States and our allies in the Middle East in the past. Over 2 decades of war in Iraq, for example, we often took out very specific terrorist leaders. We've seen that work. It doesn't always work. Sometimes you're more effective taking out the foot soldiers, but that's exactly the kind of calculation that the administration needs to be making together with our intelligence agencies to figure out where can we send the decisive blow to tell these folks that, this is not going to continue.
I want to ask you about the criticism we've seen from some of your Republican colleagues today. Your colleague in the House, Representative Mike Waltz, said the following, quote, "They are in a proxy war with us, and they've gotten the message loud and clear that they can get away with it. And not only can they get away with it, that to the extent that we do respond, it will be feckless." What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, Mike Waltz was Dick Cheney's national security advisor when Iran was attacking us every day through proxies in Iraq. And a lot of people issued the same criticisms to people like Waltz. So we got to understand our history here. Iran has attacked Americans through proxies for 2 decades. And over that time, the Republican and Democratic administrations alike have wanted the same goal, which is to send a message that this is not acceptable while at the same time not starting a full-on war with Iran. So Mike Waltz is taking political advantage of this situation. What we need to do is be smart about how we respond. And this is not easy. This is not easy. It's easy to criticize. It's not easy to get it right. Deterrence is hard. A war is worse. And that's the line that the administration is working hard to walk.
Congressman, one more question. We've seen the Qatari Prime Minister Al-Thani visiting Washington. He said today that a possible U.S. retaliation over this attack on U.S. soldiers would have an impact on hostage talks and regional security, referring there to the Israel-Gaza war. What do you make of that?
This is the reality of the complex situation that we have in the Middle East right now. There are a lot of groups that want to start a broader war. There are a lot of groups trying to tie all this stuff together to get America dragged into a broader war. Is it true that they're interrelated? Well, it can be. It's true that many of these militia or terrorist organizations are going to try to draw connections. What the United States needs to do is be clear. Be clear about our interests, be clear about defending our interests, our allies, and our troops, and respond on our terms. And we're not going to let the enemy dictate what's connected and what's not. We're going to do what's in our interests and in the interest of our allies. And I believe that's what you'll see from President Biden.
All right, Congressman, thank you